probably the best stand-up in the racket.
He's funny. Did I say that twice? Oh, good. Well, he is.
Here he is. Personal favorite of mine. This guy, among the new comedians, is young and gifted.
Very much. You look great. That's all we need, another bright new young comedian.
Good friend of mine, a wonderful comedian.
Please welcome my old buddy,
Tom Dreesen.
Tom Dreesen.
Tom Dreesen.
Tom Dreesen.
Here he is, Mr. Tom Dreesen.
Tom Dreesen.
And to this day, people say, "Who's Tom Dreesen?" It was a great start. I know who Tom Dreesen is because it's a simple question. I'm Tom Dreesen, and this is my co-host, Joe Goll.
Hello.
And we're here to make you laugh. We're here to motivate you. We're going to talk about everything, but we're not going to talk about politics.
Negative.
Unless there's a funny story. No.
Yeah, right?
And this episode, we got something planned different.
Yeah, we got a little something planned. But prior to getting into that, I'm here, obviously, like I said, my young and talented co-host, Tom Dreesen. I'm Joe Goll, and I'm going to switch it up, too. How was your day, Tom Dreesen? I always ask how your week was. How's your day?
Today was a busy day.
Was
running around, getting an X-ray about my back.
Nice.
And I got that X-ray back, an MRI.
Super fun.
So I can start to play golf again because I had 2 bulging discs.
Yeah.
But there's this guy I went to who says he can give me a shot and he thinks it's going to work.
Yeah.
And I'll be back on the golf course.
Yeah.
If not, he said, you could always get surgery. It's very minor. I'm not in the mood for that right now.
No.
But I want to get back on the golf course, so I'm going to.
Well, instead of golf, you could pick up bocce ball, maybe?
I could pick shuffleboard is my next.
Shuffleboard is going, bocce ball.
Bocce ball.
My grandmother, she actually plays in Melrose Park back in my hometown of Chicago. She plays in a bocce ball league.
Isn't that something?
With all of her old Italian ladies, yeah.
Every year at Wrigley Field, I throw out the first pitch.
Yeah.
Every year, and I take a woman who babysat me.
Yeah.
Who I don't remember, but my family I remembered. Yeah, she babysat me.
Yeah.
Her name is Mary Cook,
and
she's on her 100th birthday. Yeah. She plays what you brought a bocce ball.
Does she?
She was the runner-up for the bocce ball championship on her 99th birthday or something.
Wow.
On her 100th birthday, I took her out to the mound. They announced her, Mary Cook, former babysitter of Tom Dreesen.
Yeah.
People cheered, 100-year-old. On her 101st year of birthday, I took her out to the mound. On her 102nd birthday, I took her, and this year on her 103rd birthday, I took her out to the mound.
Yeah,
and she still plays bocce ball.
And she's moving around. She's doing well.
Yeah, she stays in Florida like in the wintertime and then comes back to Illinois.
Genius.
In the summer.
Genius.
Yeah, of course,
right?
And she's a big Cub fan, and so been a Cub fan all of her life. She wears a Cub hat, and now she goes in the stands and she's a star. People all know who she is, and they applaud her and want pictures taken with her.
But
again, she plays bocce ball at 103 years old.
Incredible. Maybe that's something you should pick up. Never know.
Yeah, well, when I turn 103,
you'll pick it up,
I'll
right?
Pick it up, yeah.
Bocce ball, which is an Italian game at heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amen. You being Italian, myself being Italian, I want to talk about our culture a little bit. I want to talk about something that surrounds our culture, which and I think that you're familiar with, the MAFIA. The mob, the Cosa Nostra, which is the given name for it.
Yeah, this episode is going to be a lot about that, what you endure as an Italian American.
Yeah,
because there were, I think I'm quoting this, but there were 115 movies I think that were made about Italian Americans, and only 7 were positive. The rest are all about mob.
The mob,
and they forget about all the great contributions Italians have made to the world.
Yeah.
But for some reason, mafia fascinates people,
right?
Both Italian and non-Italian. For some reason, that's why The Godfather was such a huge hit. Godfather 1 and 2, and then they made a Godfather 3.
Yeah,
but there were huge hits, and even to this day, people say, and I say the same thing. The one thing I don't want to see on TV when I'm changing channels is The Godfather, because once I see it, I stop and I want to watch it again.
You got to watch it.
There are scenes in there, scene after scene. They're like Academy Award winning scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just great moments in it, but it fascinates the world. And then yet it's a curse in a lot of ways because 99% of the people were not, 99.9% were not in the mafia Italians. They were hardworking Americans. They came to this country because they wanted to be Americans.
Right.
And they came in the legitimate way.
Right.
Through Ellis Island. Most of them, my ancestors did.
Right.
My biological father came over on the SS Italia.
Yeah.
In 1907, I think it was. Anyhow, nonetheless, they came over because they wanted to be Americans.
Right.
And they were proud to be Americans. And they learned the American way.
Right. And not to say this, not that we come in and, plan to talk about it, but I always had questions surrounding the mafia with show business, without show business. And I always am so intrigued by it because, obviously I'm Italian and I have Italian roots, but what do you think is so intriguing that everyone just loves the mob? What is it? What is it surrounding, and everyone loves The Godfather? And what is it?
I tried to analyze that sometimes, and I think a lot of it was, first of all, when Italians came to this country, they were heavily discriminated against because they didn't speak the language. They spoke broken English.
Right.
And oftentimes, I remember times in my life, I'd be in line and there'd be somebody in front of me and they're speaking broken English, and I'm thinking, and they're maybe speaking in another tongue, and I'd start to be another language. I mean, I'd start to be a little annoyed, and I think, wait a minute, this is what happened to our ancestors when they came here. So they were heavily discriminated against. The Italians, they burned down an entire Italian village in Pennsylvania. The largest lynchings in America really were done to Italian Americans. There were 12 lynched at one time in Huntsville, Louisiana. You can look this up. There was in Frankfort, Illinois, way south of Chicago, lynchings of Italians. There was, again, heavy discrimination. So along comes, and it shows a little bit in The Godfather, along comes this mafia organization, this Cosa Nostra, who said, we'll protect you.
Yeah.
They would.
And it started in Sicily, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it started in Sicily, the Cosa Nostra.
Right.
But anyhow, so the thought that you could go somewhere. See, when you come over in this country and you're discriminated against, and other ethnicities will bear this out.
Right.
Who do you go to? You're in the neighborhood.
Right.
You're a small time guy.
Right.
Who's going to help me? Who's going to? You fell in line with a. I'm sorry, pal. Nothing can be done about it.
Right.
And they keep telling you that you're protected by the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
But in the neighborhood, that doesn't fare so well.
Right.
So, but all of a sudden, there's somebody you can go to.
Right.
In Chicago, it became the Democratic precinct captain for a while. I always say when you're born in Chicago, the second you come out of the womb, they introduce you to your Democratic precinct captain, and then you get to meet your mom and dad. But he would come to you the moment you move into the neighborhood and say, hey, I'm Joe O'Brien or whatever, and I'm your Democratic precinct captain here. If you need anything, please let me know.
Right.
And your sidewalks messed up, you'd go to him.
Right.
You had problems, you want to get, some problem, the sewage or something, you go to him. And he would make sure it was taken care of.
Right.
Your son wants to get a job. If he can help, he gets a job. Come election time, he comes on you and said, now I need something from you.
Wow.
You got to vote my way.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm the voice in City Hall for you.
Right.
Well, the mafia became that sort of thing in Italian neighborhoods. They became that sort of thing that you go to them and they're going to get some help for you. In the movie The Godfather, you remember earlier in the movie, the funeral director comes and says, my daughter was beaten and raped by two men. Right. And they got away with it. They went to court, and the local court guy, they dismissed the case because they had some clout. And he's begging the Godfather for help me. Yeah. This is a businessman, a funeral director. Yeah. But he went to the guy, and the Godfather says, well, I'll take care of this. But one day, your Don may come to you and ask you a favor. Yeah. Anyhow, so it was like helpless people, having somebody to go to, and they could get revenge. They could get justice. Right. And sometimes it was street justice, but it was a justice in their mind. Right. On the other dark side of that is they would charge a street tax sometimes that you'd own a little business. And you saw that in The Godfather too. Right. When he went, when
the Don was going around and
he was going around and De Niro's character was working for this grocery store guy. Right. But he had to let him go because the Don said, I want you to take care of my nephew, you know.
Right.
Anyhow, so I knew about it when I was a little boy.
Yeah, that was kind of my next thing. Was it around you? Because I know it was so much more, out there, back in the day than it is right now. Did you know about it? Did you know guys associated with it? Were you around it?
I grew up in Harvey, Illinois, and now you think back in the 50s, shows you my age, when I was growing up, they owned the mob guys owned the jukeboxes, and they owned all the jukeboxes and any video machine you put into a bar.
Right.
The syndicate, they didn't call them the mafia in those days. They didn't call them the mob. The mafia was a word was used by Italians maybe only, or Cosa Nostra. But to street people, it was a syndicate. They called it the syndicate. They owned the jukeboxes, and they also owned a lot of the recording companies, and they also had the power to put your record on a jukebox, or the power not to put your record on a jukebox. So if you were in show business and you were a singer, you played ball with them. I don't give a damn. They always, I toured with Frank Sinatra 14 years. They always associate Frank with the mob. But every singer knew that in those days. Jerry Vale, Eddie Fisher, Tony Bennett, Al Martino, Pat Boone. I don't care who. They knew that the wise guys controlled the jukeboxes. So
right.
if you always want to be in favor with them. But when I was a little boy, shining shoes in all the bars. The last bar I would go to, the Shine Shoes, was my uncle Frank Polizzi owned the bar. And my mom was a bartender there, my mom and my aunt, Frank Polizzi's wife, my Aunt Margie. And I shined shoes in all the neighborhood bars, and I'd go to that bar last because that's where my mom was a bartender. But he worked in a factory for years, struggled. He came over from the old country, Frank Polizzi, and he saved enough money that he was going to buy a bar. And he bought a jukebox, a Wurlitzer jukebox. It cost him $100 in those days. So, and it only played 78s. That shows how long ago it was.
78s?
78s, not 33.
What is it?
78 is a record, the big record.
Oh.
You see the big.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't an album, but it was one song. A song on each side.
Wow, yeah.
Anyhow, so Frank opened up his bar, and about 2 weeks later, I'm there in the afternoon. Frank is in the back having lunch, and my mom and my aunt are running the bar. A truck pulls out in front. Two big guys come. They get this beautiful jukebox, beautiful glass jukebox and everything. They open the door. They wheel it in. They set it down. They said, "What do you want this at, Mrs. Polizzi?" She said, "What is this?" He said, "The jukebox." She said, "We have a jukebox." No, Mrs. Polizzi. We supply jukeboxes to all the people. You don't get to pick your own jukebox. She said, "I don't know what to do." When I signed, she goes and gets my Uncle Frank.
Frank, right.
He comes out, dying, tough guy, Sicilian. He's wiping them off. They said, "What is it, fellas?" Mr. Tuffinelli, Babe Tuffinelli, was head of the mob in Blue Island. And he handled all the jukeboxes.
Yeah.
What a name, Babe Tuffinelli.
Jeez, yeah.
And it said, Mr. Tuffinelli sent this over, and my Uncle Frank said, "I got a jukebox here." He said, "No, Mr. Polizzi, we supply the jukeboxes." And he said, "Get it out of here. I got a jukebox. I worked my ass off to buy this jukebox." He said, "Mr. Polizzi, please." He said, "Get it out of it." They said, "You know what? We're going to walk out of here because our job was to deliver it here. We delivered it here."
Oh.
Frank took the two-wheeler. He wheeled it out and dumped it on the sidewalk, and it broke on the sidewalk.
Are you serious?
My mom and my aunt got the rosary out now.
There's their brand.
This is unheard. You just don't do that.
Did Frank know kind of what was going on?
He was mad because he didn't order this jukebox. Now,
but did he know that they were associated with this Babe guy?
Oh, sure, of course he knew that. I mean, he's Italian. He knew, but half an hour later, you're out in the front, doors open up, two big guys, and this guy comes out of the back seat, comes in the bar, and he gets right in Frank Polizzi's face, and Frank gets right back in his face.
No kidding.
Oh, he said, "You broke my jukebox." He said, "I told your goons to get it out of here. I got it." He said, "You don't supply it. We supply the jukeboxes." Frank said, "Hey, I worked my ass off for years in the factory to buy that jukebox over there." And then he said, "Go pressure the Metagons, which is a non-Italian.
Right.
And for you out there, it's not a derogatory term. A non-Italian Italian say they couldn't say when they came to this country because they had a tough time with the language. They couldn't say American. they'd say, he's American, American. And it became like, he's American.
Right.
So American became a non-Italian.
Same with like the bagaus, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Backhaus, I used to think Backhaus was the name of a toilet, but Italians, it was the
back
outhouse.
house. They're the outhouse,
outhouse
right.
out the back.
Right.
If they had to use a John, they'd say, I'm going to the back house, the back house, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So now it became part of our slang. Anyhow, now him and Tough and Out are going face to face, arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
Frank said, take your pressure to the Americans. I'm an Italian, leave me alone.
Right.
And they're going back and forth. And finally, Babe Tough and Out, he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You got your jukebox, you can keep your jukebox. But if this business doesn't work out for you, if you want to go into another business, I'd like you to come and work for me. And Frank said, I'd never work for the likes of you. He didn't like mafia.
Oh.
And he didn't like the control, Anyhow, long story short, that was my first introduction to that. And as years go by, in the neighborhoods, Chicago Heights was not far from Harvey, where I grew up at.
Yeah.
Chicago Heights was one of the strongholds. Different people ran it out there.
Right.
Frankie Laporte, Frank Laporte was head of the mob when I was growing up, hearing those names.
Wow.
Anyhow, at one time I worked with his nephew, Frank Lucy, and Dan Zorzi. But Frank Lucy, my cousin Don Polizzi, Kerry's father,
Mm-hmm.
my nephew. Anyhow, he was a police officer who left the police department and went to work for bondsmen.
Mm-hmm.
He was bonding people out.
Right.
And Frank Lucy was the bondsman at that time
Mm-hmm.
with Dan Zorzi. And so they had lost their right to being bondsmen because they bribed a judge. And I mean, they had bribed the judge for years.
Right.
But one day the FBI got onto the judge.
Yeah.
And so that when they came for their weekly envelope, when Frank Lucy handed the judge, here you go, Judge, and the judge goes, "What's that?" Dan Zorzi told me later his ears perked up because they've been dropping that envelope for months, years. He's going, "What's that?" He sensed there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
And Frank said, "You know what it is." He said, "No, what is it?"
Oh,
He said, "It's the money for." And Dan said the doors opened up and the FBI came in.
Oh,
and they got so they were waiting trial.
Right.
When this is going on, so they hired Don Polizzi,
Yeah.
my cousin, to So I was a private detective for Don Polizzi. He had a detective agency, and he was a bondsman.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, Frank Lucy and Dan Zorzi would take me with them, give me $10 when they were looking for a bond jumper, someone who would jump bond on them.
Yeah.
So they would, they'd take me into real tough neighborhoods, and I did what they call lay chicky. When they'd go to get the guy in the front of the house, I'd be around the back in case the guy come running out the back.
Oh.
Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
There were
right.
some scary, hairy times that I went with them.
Sheesh.
Finally, I quit going with them because, I mean, it was really, I got $10 for it, which I needed a lot in those days. I had a wife and kids,
Yeah.
and that was just side money, Anyhow, so I knew the guys from the Heights. I knew, and we all knew them. There were bookies. I was a bartender, and I worked for a bookie,
Right.
Joe Follica. He had a place called Joe and Mary's Dugout, and he took bets,
Yeah.
which was against the law.
Right.
And they came and arrested him a couple times, took him down to the jail, a county jail in Homewood, and he'd get out on bond, and he'd always get away with it,
Yeah.
But so you knew about them. You
Right.
always knew that they existed. They existed in the neighborhoods, and you knew. And sometimes they did good things. I mean, sometimes they would, but they were any wedding you'd go to, like in Chicago Heights, they would be there.
Yeah.
Any funeral, they'd be there,
Yeah.
and they'd always offer money or flowers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They always made themselves available to the community.
Right.
If you wanted to go there, but for people to be so naive and to think that, like, when I was touring with Frank Sinatra, everybody's talking about the mafia with Frank Sinatra. And I could talk about Frank Sinatra, and you've seen me do this
Mm-hmm.
in my one-man show, a 90-minute show, The Man Who Made Sinatra Laugh. And I do a lot of other things prior to Frank Sinatra's portion of that show, but about my career. And working with Sammy Davis, working with Dean Martin,
Mm-hmm.
working with Smokey Robinson, Gladys Knight and the Pips. And it's a fun show for me to do. But at the end, I could say, do you have any questions? And the very first question coming out saying, was Frank Sinatra in the mafia? that people ask that question over and over again.
And what's your response?
And I always say, no, he was not in the mafia.
Right.
Are you asking him if he knew those people? Yes, he knew those people. That's not a secret.
Mm-hmm.
But so did everybody else in show business that was in the entertainment era.
Right.
They owned Las Vegas at one time.
Right.
They owned the nightclubs.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's what Casino is about.
absolutely.
Casino's about, and obviously you
the movie Casino.
the
yeah.
movie Casino, and obviously you being around Frank, you knew those guys, right? You knew all those guys.
Well, you know what? They didn't come to. I didn't meet mob guys through Frank Sinatra.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I did not. I mean, I saw a couple times when someone would come backstage, and it was somebody important.
Right.
But in New York and things like that. But Frank, his last 20 years, he tried to distance himself from them.
Mm-hmm.
He once told me, he said, Tommy, I rue the day that I ever made friends with them because they won't get out of your life. He said, you're a young singer, and they do a favor for you.
Right.
You got a problem, and they do a favor for you.
Right.
You repay that favor.
Right.
You do a big concert or something for them. Then years go by, and the son of that guy comes and says, my dad did you a favor. Now, he's connected, the son. Next thing you know, you do repay that. He said, then the grandson comes and says, my grandfather did. He said, they won't get out of your life.
Yeah.
And Dean Martin always told me, he said, Tommy, keep him at arm's length.
Right.
Show respect, but keep him at arm's length.
Yeah.
Dean had a real bad time with him. He wouldn't ever have anything to do with him.
Really? And
Yeah.
he's from Italy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he actually, his parents were, he didn't speak English till he was like 6 years old. Dean spoke strictly Italian.
Because his real name is Dean Martino or something?
Crocetti. Dino Crocetti.
Oh, Dino Crocetti.
Yeah, Crocetti, yeah. Crocetti. He boxed under the name of Kid Crocetti. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But again, Dean just said, like, and I did shows for them in Chicago. They would ask me to come and do a show.
Well, that's the thing is, how do you, because the favors, and I know if you do a favor, I got to do a favor for you type of thing, but how do you, if let's say a mob guy comes up to you and he says, I got this, my cousin's making her first communion, and I want you to be there for her. What do you say? No?
Yeah. Well,
it's like a lose-lose.
Yeah, it was for me. It was charities they did. They had charities they did in Chicago, and they'd come to me and say, "We're raising some money for the charity,"
right?
And I would do it. Sometimes they would pay me, not what you normally get,
right?
But they'd pay me, and that was fine, and that was as close as you get.
Right.
Now, again, did you know them? I know a lot of them. A lot of them, fans of mine, came to my shows. My friend Freddie Pacenti, they called him Freddie Boy.
Yeah.
He had the greatest laugh of them all. Now, he never asked me to do anything for him.
Right.
But he would come to my shows all the time, and I would love when he'd come because he was a great laugher.
Mm-hmm.
And he was connected in Chicago, too. He was on a crew. And so he had me do a couple shows sometimes. He asked me to come and do a couple shows sometimes. The head of the mob in those days was Joey the Clown Lombardo.
And he was crazy, right?
No, Joey wasn't. That was Crazy Joey Gallo.
Gallo,
Yeah,
right.
that's a whole nother story. But so he was in one of his crews, and Lombardo's crew. So I would gladly do the show, and they would pay me, but they never asked anything of me. But towards the end of his life, Freddie didn't know he was dying at the time, but he once said to me, "Hey, we're going to open up a club, and a comedy club, and we want to call it Dreesen Street." Because I had a special called Dreesen Street.
Wow.
He said, we're going to open up a club, and we're going to call it Dreesen Street, and want you involved in this, But I said, okay, let me know. And I was going to get out of it. I was never going to do that. Because I knew that they just want you to front.
Right.
That's what they do to a lot of people that are in trouble in business. Mm-hmm. They fund you, take, and then they front your business, and they eventually take over your business.
And Freddie said this to you?
Yeah, Freddie, he didn't tell me that they were going to do it. He just said, we'd like to call it Dreesen Street because you're well known in Chicago. And I had a pilot once called Dreesen Street.
Yeah.
And so...
Could you ever trust those guys, though? I mean, even Freddie being your friend, you knew what was going on, right?
I would not go into the business with him.
Never.
I knew better than that.
Yeah.
I knew, but...
Did you know people who went into business with them and...
not specifically, but I know of a couple of cases where I'll give you the greatest con that's ever been done in Las Vegas.
All right.
And I tried to get to The Sopranos, the movie, the film,
the show
series, Sopranos, to tell them about this scam.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get to them. This was done in Las Vegas for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
You take a singer, and whoever. I don't name names because I don't know for sure they were all involved in this, but they would find a hot singer, and he'd be singing in Las Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
and the maitre d' would get like $500 way back in the day. Can you introduce us to the singer because we enjoyed this show?
Mm-hmm.
And the maitre d' knew they were connected, big guys,
right?
and that's an expression they use about is he in the mafia? Is he in the Cosa Nostra? Is he connected? That meant he was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the maitre d' would go backstage and say to the singer, Big Tony from Hartford, Connecticut, or from Boston, Massachusetts,
Right.
or from Syracuse, New York,
Right.
or from Chicago,
Yeah.
or Kansas City. They were all over the country.
Right.
He's a big guy in the outfit, but he's a fan of yours. And they really enjoyed the show, and he's got his mother with him. I'd like to know if you could they come backstage?
Mm-hmm.
And almost always, well, yeah, sure. Guy comes backstage, don't want to bother you. My mom's a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Hugs and kisses, thank you very much. Take a picture with the mom. Thank you, we don't want to bother you anymore. Leave. The next day, in his dressing room was a big bouquet of roses.
Yeah.
Tons of roses and flowers and stuff. Thank you very much for being nice to our mom. Now, you appeared in Vegas. You appeared in Vegas in those days, usually 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 times a year. The next time that singer comes to Vegas, sure enough, the maitre d' comes backstage and says, remember Big Tony from, wherever, Hartford, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, he brought his mom back here. Yeah, we know he's here tonight. Some people want to come back and just say hello. Yeah, they're nice people. They send us flowers. Now they come backstage, and now it's like 3 guys, the big guy, and the hottest smokingest chick you ever saw in your life, Carmela. She's smoking hot, just gorgeous young girl.
Yeah.
Somehow in the conversation, the wise guy says, Carmela thinks you're pretty hot. Well, the guy's married. He might have kids,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he's not. But either way, he says, I thought she was with Tony here, or with Louis here or something. No, she's free. Long story short, this singer gets up with Carmela. They start making it for the weekend.
Yeah.
Or the week.
Yeah.
She's a gorgeous young girl, 21 years old.
Yeah.
About 2 months goes by, and they exchange phone numbers if I'm ever in Philly or ever in New York or wherever she's from.
Hit me up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're saying, he gets a phone call from Carmela, 2 months later, and says, I'm scared to death. I'm pregnant, and I lied to you. I'm not 21, I'm 17. Oh. I'm scared to death. What am I now? This guy's, oh my God, what am I going to do? This
Career's over. Yeah. Whatever.
I'm married or I'm engaged.
Right.
Whatever. He doesn't know. Now, if luck is with him,
Mm-hmm.
if luck is with him, that Tony, he'll call Tony, the guy, and say, hey, Tony, that girl, Carmela. But if he doesn't call Tony, a couple days go by and Tony calls him. Hey, what's this I hear about you and Carmela? Yeah, I didn't know. She told me she was up there. Don't you worry about anything. You were nice to my family. You're good to my family. Don't you worry about a thing.
We'll take care
That's all
of
we're
it.
taking
Right.
care. I don't want any harm. No harm's going to come to her. No harm's going to come to her. We're glad to do this for you. Now,
You owe them. Yeah.
you owe them. Months go by, and they get a hold of you. Hey, listen, we're having a charity here in Hartford, Connecticut for the orphanage or whatever the charity would be.
Uh-huh.
If you could bring your group here and sing here, I'd appreciate it. Are you kidding me? This guy saved your life, saved your marriage.
Right.
You go there, and you do it on what we call on the arm for
Right.
free. You go there and you do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
They raised $250,000 that night because you were there.
Right.
$50,000 goes to the charity. $200,000 is cut up between the group, and one of them is Carmela. She gets her cut too. She was in on it all along. They pulled that scam over and over and over and over again.
Really?
For years in Las Vegas with different singers and even a comedian, different singers and blah, blah, blah.
And it just stretched over a long period
Yeah,
of time.
Pretty soon, at one time, no one was ever going to talk about this.
Right.
But pretty soon they caught on to it. But they pulled it for years. What a beautiful scam, though, when you think about it. He does a free show.
Right.
The orphanage got $50,000.
Right.
The wise guys cut up the other bit of money. That's their problem.
Right.
But no harm, no foul. Nobody
Right.
got hurt in this whole thing. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's a fraud.
Yeah.
You gave up a free show.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
I was going to say, when you mentioned they did charities, they ain't giving all of it to the charity. They're taking up cuts, right?
I would believe that because I don't,
Yeah.
who's the charity here?
Right.
Somebody, You know, the other thing too about even about charities, I don't know how many times I've raised. I'm not bragging. I raised millions of dollars for multiple sclerosis,
Sure.
among other charities that I've done throughout the years. However, those charities have an executive board, and they have a president, and they have a lot of employees,
Right.
and they have to be paid.
They have to be paid.
But they ask you, would you do it for free?
Right.
Now you go in and you do the charity because of course, my sister had MS.
MS, right.
Every year I would run 26 miles. Call it 26 miles for Darlene.
Yeah.
Now they'd say, would you come in and do a show? Well, they're going to charge like $100 a person
A
or
plate
whatever,
or whatever it is.
$10,000 a table, whatever they charge.
Right.
Well, some of that went to the MS, but a lot of it went to employees. Their salaries.
Sure, yeah.
And right, so. So time would go by, and they would. It took me years to catch on to this, and I would say to them, they'd say, "Tom, we want you to come in and do a show." Well, here's the thing: you do a show for them. People come and pay to see you perform. Then the next time you come in town and you want to perform on your own and make money, people say, "Oh no, I just saw him. I saw him 3 months ago." So it kills your box office draw.
Right.
So they would. One time, I talked to the president of this charity, and she wanted me to do it for free. Again, I said, "I'll be glad to, but I would like for you and all the staff." I was at a meeting, and I said, "Give up, if you will. I would like for you to give up 2 weeks of your salary. 2 weeks of your salary, and I'll do mine for free." Well, we can't do that. We can't. I said, well, you want me to work for free? How about you working for free? Bingo.
Bingo, you got them. And
So-
whether you can say or not, did you work for, mob guys for charities and like that? Often?
Yeah, but they paid me.
But they paid you.
They paid me. I don't know. They say they were doing it for the charity. They paid me. They paid me, and there was one charity that every year they would have a different comedian, and they wanted me to do it one year, and then they said, "Will you get me other comedians?" And they would pay them, and then on the fourth year I'd come back and do it again.
Yeah.
And that was for Jackie Cerrone. They called him Jackie the Lackey Cerrone, which he was not really a lackey, but he was. Why they called him some nickname for him? But anyhow, no one in front of him ever called him that.
Yeah, right.
But anyhow, and I'd do the charity, and then they'd pay me.
Did they offer you money up
Oh yeah.
front?
Oh no, they told me they were going to pay. They said that we're going to
they
raise
did.
money for the charity. We want you to come.
Yeah.
And I got a couple other comedians. One, Jay Leno.
Yeah.
That Jay talks about all the time.
Yeah.
I got him the gig. You
Yeah.
know, because we were all new in those days.
Right.
But I can't remember some of the other. I think John Campanaro. I got some other comedians that do it.
Yeah.
Through the years.
Did Frank do those shows too?
Frank Sinatra for years did a lot of those kind of charities. And then after a while he caught on to it too.
Oh, really?
And again, did he know those people? I mean, here's a great story. He was in front of the grand jury one time, and Frank told me this story. He said the prosecuting attorney or something had an 8x10 manila envelope, and he's got it in his hand, and he said to Frank, "Did you know?" And he named the mob guy, Joey Scuccinello or something like that. Frank said, "No." He said, "You didn't know him." Frank knows he's about to pull this picture out.
Right.
And he said, "You didn't know Joe Scuccinello." He said, "No, I met him, but I didn't know him." And the prosecuting attorney went like this.
Wow.
He knew he'd been had.
Wow.
He dropped it and knew he'd been had. Because Frank Sinatra said, "Yeah, I take 1,000 pictures like that a year.
Right.
10,000 pictures like that,
Right.
backstage and everything like that."
Right.
But there's a famous picture of Frank with four big guys, four
Right.
or five big guys, taken backstage at the in Long Island. God, I forgot the name of the theater, but I'll think of it now.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they came backstage, and I almost said the name of the theater. Anyhow, they came backstage and took the pictures. So, did you know them? Everybody in the business knew them. You know, but were you part of them? No.
No.
And
But to get those shows in Vegas, I mean, who booked you in Vegas? Who booked you in Vegas?
well, the first time I went to Vegas was with Sammy Davis Jr.
And
Caesar's Palace.
And who booked you guys?
Sammy said, "You're my opening act," and he
Right.
told the hotel, "I'm bringing in Tom Dreesen."
Right.
You know,
But they always say that, the mob guys, they owned Vegas. So Did
No,
they have to go?
let me say this: they didn't own all of Vegas, but they owned They owned the Stardust and
Yeah.
a lot of hotels like.
But they actually owned it.
Yeah, they owned.
They just didn't run it.
Yeah,
They owned it.
yeah, and the movie Casino points it out that when all the money was brought in, like say at the end of the night, they said there would be the first count.
Right.
You count the money. That count, they skim off the top and send it to all the people.
Right.
Guys in Kansas City and everything like that.
Right.
And it became a joke. They'd say, he's going to work over at the Stardust Hotel. Yeah, he's in charge of the first count.
That's
Or he's
funny.
in charge of the second count.
That's funny.
Second count was for the house, and the third count was like for the government.
Yeah.
And they finally busted them all. They finally got them all.
Yeah.
Which was always, I thought, what a dumb thing. You had a hotel, and you had other hotels. They make money. You don't have to cheat.
They make a lot of money
Yeah,
too.
You don't have to skim.
Right.
You're in a legitimate business.
Right.
But they had to skim, and of course they all got busted for that.
Yeah, and I think to go back to like my first question that I asked, I think people are so intrigued by the mafia and the Italians and those movies just because it's so, I guess, badass, to put it into like a lame's terms. It's so, rebel. And I know you tell a good story, and you tell it better than I do, about when you were on that radio show, right? With the Hispanic radio show, and they wanted to talk about Frank Sinatra, right?
Well, there was, and that reminds me of another story that I'll talk about after that. But there was a Latino hip hop station in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was really well known,
Mm-hmm.
and they called my manager Dan Waddy, and they said, "Would you get Tom on the show?
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk to him about Frank Sinatra." But it was a hip hop station and stuff.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, Dan, it's probably like a Latino Howard Stern or something. They might get me on there and then try to trick me into saying something
Right.
or piss me off."
Right. Yeah.
So I kept turning it down. I'm appearing at the Laugh Factory one night, trying out some new material, and this guy that had the show,
Yeah.
I can't think of his name, but he was out in front. When I walked out, he said, "Mr. Dreesen, I'm so-and-so, and we've been trying to get you on our show." I said, "Oh, no, my manager told me about it." Meanwhile, people are blowing the horn, waving at the guy. One couple pulled off to the side, got up and took pictures with the guy.
Really?
I said, "This guy's pretty
Who are
popular."
you?
Yeah. I said, he said, "No, Mr. Dreesen, we're really fascinated by your career and working with Frank Sinatra, and we'd like for you to come on and just talk to some of our listeners. It'll be fun."
Yeah.
I agreed to do it. I get there like 7:30 in the morning, on the air live. Anyhow, and he starts talking about Frank Sinatra, and he opened up the lines, and the lights lit up.
Really?
17 years old, 19 years old. Yeah, Gloria, you're on the air, 19 years old. Asking about Frank Sinatra. Finally, commercial break, I said, I don't get it, man. These kids are 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And it's a hip-hop station. What is this interest in Frank Sinatra? He said, "Oh, man, you don't get it. He was a fucking outlaw, man."
Wow.
All young people are rebellious.
Right.
They're 17, 25 years. You're going to rebel against the society.
Yeah.
And Frank Sinatra did it his way.
Yeah.
There was something they were more interested in, like the toughness of him,
Right.
The gangster.
Mm-hmm.
He did it the way he wanted.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a real funny story. The first year I was touring with Frank, we were going to we went to the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And it was my first year with him. They were honoring Barbara Sinatra for the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center, raising money for children that were physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. And it was state of the art. It's still there in Palm Springs, the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center. And every year, Frank and I would do the Frank Sinatra golf tournament. We'd perform for it, and all that money went to the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center. And then for years after Frank died, we ran it for almost 30 years, the Frank Sinatra golf tournament, which would make money for the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center. And anyhow, so now this is my first year of touring with him. They're honoring Barbara Sinatra. And on the dais, Lee Iacocca is the master of ceremonies. On the dais is Dean Martin, is Frank Sinatra, is Henry Kissinger, myself. It's like, guess who doesn't belong in this picture, I was looking at all these big stars, Gregory Peck was there.
Wow.
Anyhow,
This is a lineup. Holy
yeah, it was
cow.
a big night. So now, there's a cocktail party prior to the event, and Frank is talking to me about a gig we're going to be doing at Garden State Arts Center. And we're talking, and meanwhile, along comes Henry Kissinger. And Henry Kissinger comes up and he said, "Francis, how are you doing?" He said, "Dr. Kissinger, it's nice to see you." He said, "This is comedian Tom Dreesen. He's touring with me now." And Kissinger, he took his fist like this and he hit me on the shoulder. He said, "I've seen you on the Johnny Carson show. You're a funny lad." I'm thinking, wow, Henry Kissinger watches Henry Kissinger watches the Tonight Show. I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Frank turns around. He's talking to Donald Trump. Trump was not. Trump was a hotel owner in those days.
Sure, yeah.
He wasn't even talking about politics.
Right.
He starts talking about Donald Trump. Now I'm all alone with Henry Kissinger, and I want to say something. Something intelligent.
Intelligent, right.
That I know a lot about the world affairs because I watch Nightline every night.
Right, yeah, right.
And so I said to him, Dr. Kissinger, this thing about the West Bank, I'm real curious, and I asked him some question about the West Bank. Just then, Lee Castle, who was the band leader, Italian guy, walks by, and he stops, and he says to Henry Kissinger, "Excuse me." He said, "Tommy, did you hear about Tony Maki?" He said, "The fucking feds busted him. He got 2 years." Now, when he said that to me, Tony Maki, I don't know who he's talking about. I'm handling hecklers.
The feds busted him.
Yeah, I'm handling hecklers my whole life. I go, "Oh yeah." I mean, I know what else to say. Meanwhile, he walks away, and Kissinger's now looking at me like I'm Al Capone.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
And I know. I said, I said to Kissinger, I said, "You know how them fucking feds are."
No, you did
I
not.
swear I did. I didn't know what to say to break the ice, But
you know how them feds are.
Later, I went to Lee Castle, and I said, "Lee, what the hell were you talking about?" He said, "Tony Maki, he books the Italian Fest every year in Milwaukee." I said, "I met him one time. I did the show, and I came off stage. He handed me a check. I met him one time." He said, "Well, I thought you'd want to know." I said, "You wonder why everybody thinks all Italians are in the mafia?" Because of that kind of remark. Later that night, Frank said to me, we were having dinner at a place called Rocky Lee's in New York. Frank said to me, "Tom, what were you and Kissinger talking about?" I said, "Frank, you ain't going to believe it. I told him what Lee Castle said."
Right.
He said, "Guys like that just don't think." He said, one time, in the 40s, he was sitting on a dais with the governor of New York on a dais, and in the audience, it was for a charity. All these tables were bought by different businesses, a lot of construction guys. Right. And Frank, whenever he talked about the wise guys, I don't know why Italians do it. He said, and a lot of these guys, he'd pull his ear and, I don't know why they do that, but old time Italian guys, they go, and a lot of these guys,
Really? Huh.
So Frank,
that's new. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I'll show you when I got my earphone off. But and he said, I'm sitting with the governor, and he said one of the wise guys came up from the table, from the audience, walked all the way around, got up on the dais, and knelt down between me and the governor of New York. And he said, "Frank, I don't know if you heard or not." And he named some Italian name. Joe Skingaminga died last night in the electric chair. And he looked at the governor and he said, "This fuck wouldn't pardon him." Now, I said, "Frank, what did you do?" He said, "I fell off the chair laughing." He said, he called the governor, "Fuck." He said, "I fell off the chair laughing,
right in front of him,
yeah,
too.
Right, yeah. I mean, so, again,
man.
It's just, I wish that I could, sometimes when I speak at Italian functions, I cite all the things that Italian people brought to this country and to our culture worldwide. Yeah. And it's fascinating when you hear all the incredible things that they have become. Yeah. In the business world, in the political world, in the scientific world. Yeah. Not to mention the entertainment business.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and so many small and they're the hardest. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but they're the hardest workers too. I mean, with starting businesses and doing their own thing, and
again, in those days when they came to this country, there was no welfare.
Right,
there was no welfare, and when I grew up, the mantra in my neighborhood was, "You only deserve in life what you work for." Yeah. There was no welfare. So that's why at 8 years old, 9 years old, I'm out with my brother, my older brother, shining shoes. Wow. We shoveled sidewalks in the wintertime for money. We sold newspapers on the corner. Yeah. I caddied in the summertime, carrying 2 bags a day. Right. I set pins in bowling alleys. Yeah. I was like 11 years old the first time I went to the bowling alley. Yeah. I was 12 years old in 7th grade and 8th grade. I'm going after grade school, I'm going to the bowling alley to set pins in a bowling alley. Yeah. In a dangerous job, Yeah. Because you only deserve in life what you work for. That money had to help feed my brothers and sisters,
Which still shocks me. But I'd love to do a thing to open it up to people who are listening. And I'm sure so many people have so many questions about the Mafia and Frank. Maybe we can figure out a way to do that on a future episode.
I think you're right.
I think I'm right. Anyways, we talked about the mob. Do you want to leave us with anything here, or kind of set our piece, or what?
I try to leave with
A little motivation, yeah.
a little motivation, and I think that it would be in telling this story that that no matter what, let me digress.
Yeah.
My mom had a thing in her plaque in the kitchen that said, "The talent you have is God's gift to you. What you do with that talent is your gift to God."
Oh.
Frank Sinatra, arguably, maybe the greatest career show business has ever known. Forget about his singing, the greatest pop singer of all time, and all of his records and all that.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, he won the Academy Award. Never took an acting lesson.
Yeah.
Won the Academy Award in a movie From Here to Eternity, and even after that, The Man with the Golden Arm and The Manchurian Candidate. He should have won for The Man with the Golden Arm. But he had 61 films. This is probably arguably the most successful career show business has ever known. But he always gave back. He constantly gave back to charities. And I know he read a book called The Magnificent Obsession by Lloyd C. Douglas. Its predecessor was a book called Dr. Hudson's Secret Journal. And in it is a secret of success.
Yeah.
And the secret of success is that if you pray to God, if you say, "God, I want to be this, I want to be a comedian, I want to be a baker, I want to own my own business, I want to be a doctor," whatever it is you pray for, you have to believe with all your heart and soul, act and you shall receive. Ask and you shall receive. I'm sorry. Ask and you shall receive. And so you have to believe that I asked and I'm going to receive this. But then from that point on, you got to keep your eyes and ears open for his less fortunate children. So you help them out. And if they don't know it, that's what will lead you toward your reward. That within 30 days, your master will lead you towards your reward. You have to do it in privacy. You don't have to do it, and it's biblical.
Yeah. Jesus
said something about don't stand in front of the temple and shout out your great deeds.
Preaching, yeah.
All the things that you've done, all the wonderful things that you've done. He said, your master knows what you've done.
Yeah.
So if you do this, and you do it for people and they don't know, your master will reward you towards your endeavor.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra, coming out of the Waldorf Astoria one night, we went out the back, we were going to a gig in Waldorf Astoria in New York. Coming out of the Waldorf Astoria, a woman jumped out of the doorway. The doorman told me she'd been there for 5 hours. She's hollering out, "Frank Sinatra, please, please, Mr. Sinatra, please, Mr. Sinatra." The security was holding her back. We're starting to get in a limo, and Frank finally turned around and went back, and he said to the security guards, "Leave her alone." "What is it, ma'am?" She said, "My husband is home ill, very, very ill. If you could sign this autograph, it would mean the world to him." Frank said, "Sure." Frank signed the autograph, and she said, "Oh, what beautiful cufflinks." He was wearing these very expensive cufflinks. Had diamonds on them, everything. I know where he got them. They're very expensive. He said, "Thank you." He took the cufflinks off, and he said, "I want you to give these to your husband." She said, "Oh, no, I don't want them. I just said admiring them." He said, "No, I want your husband to have them." We get in the limo, and I said, "Frank, that was beautiful what you did, but why did you do that?" Right. He said, "Tommy, if you possess something that you can't give away, then you don't possess it. It possesses you." And whoa, that was pretty profound. He said, "See that shirt on your back? If you die tomorrow, that belongs to somebody else. Nothing we have is ours. We're only using it."
Yeah.
Aristotle Onassis, this is what he said. Aristotle Onassis had billions of dollars. He owned yachts. He owned private jets. He owned mansions. The second he died, it transferred.
Yeah.
Nothing we have is ours.
Gone.
It's gone. So that being said, that as much blessing as Frank Sinatra received in his life, he gave back more than you'll ever know. You'll never know. If you saw benevolent acts that he did, you had to keep it a secret. He didn't want people to know. There were some charities he did that, obviously,
right.
But that's the lesson of all of this. The lesson is, that at the end of the day, it's not what you accomplish as much as it's not as much as you receive as much as you give back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Tom, giving us all your wonderful stories. And again, you guys can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify Podcast at Who's Tom Dreesen, and we'll see you next time. And this was fun as always. So
it's always fun to be with you, Joey.
Thanks, Tommy.